boys and girls. Welcome to Let's Get Cooking. My name is Miss Jeannie and I work at the community library in Salem and Twin Lakes, Wisconsin. Well, I'm glad you joined me today. We've been meeting every second Wednesday of the last few months doing a baking or a cooking program. Today we're actually going to be making sandwiches. Last month we did baked pears. And if you're interested, you can always go back into our library website and go to the database for Let's Get Cooking and see some of those programs if you've missed any of them. We try to incorporate making something fun to eat with a few tips in the kitchen. The idea is to encourage young people and those of us that are young at heart to get working in the kitchen, try some new things, smell some new spices or seasonings, taste some new things, and hopefully you'll have a good time doing it. All right, well today, again, I'm going to be using this cookbook. It's called the Mother Goose Cookbook. This will be the last time I use this particular book. I have quite a few others that I'm going to introduce over the next few months. This one is by Marianna Mayer, and I liked this one because it's a hard book. It's easy to put on the counter because it'll stand. It has very colorful pages and fairly easy recipes to follow. And then on the other side, there's the recipe, and then on this side is some nursery rhymes. Or like last month, it was a riddle. And this month, we're going to be making Humpty, Dumpty, Dilly egg sandwiches. So if you were thinking about Mother Goose rhymes, what do you think a good rhyme would go with making egg salad sandwiches? Well, if you thought of Humpty Dumpty, the Humpty Dumpty nursery rhyme, you were right. And this is a picture of it I took so that you could see. I also put it in the beginning of our program so you can go back and look at it. It's very colorful and there's all kinds of characters on there. And so let me say it, and maybe you can say it with me. All right. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men cannot, what? Put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Well, it's actually pretty silly, as is most nursery rhymes. But that particular rhyme goes along with this recipe today. And so we're going to go ahead and get started making our sandwiches. As you can see, I have all the ingredients here that I'm going to be using, as well as some fun things to add to maybe a lunch plate. And so the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to boil some eggs. So this recipe calls for 3 eggs, boiled eggs. And so what I used is a pan like this. I put 3 eggs inside and I filled water up over the top of them. If you've never boiled eggs before, let's talk about it a little bit, because it's definitely a fun skill to have. You never know. You might want to put a boiled egg on a salad someday, or you might want to make an egg salad sandwich like we're going to be making. Eggs is a great protein for your diet, and so it's good to have eggs on hand and know how to cook them. Now some of you might like it scrambled or over easy, which we would use a frying pan for those. But if you want a boiled egg, I would suggest using a pan similar to this. Once I have the eggs in here and water in here, I'm going to turn on the flame. And you're always going to want to make sure that you have adults' permission before you get going on the stove, especially with using a live flame. And we're going to leave this here, and it's going to take a little bit, but you have to keep an eye on it. Once it starts boiling, and you'll hear it. It'll start to bubble and boil. What I do is I let it come to a boil, and then I turn off my flame. I move my pan to the back cool area on my stove, and I put the lid on. I set my timer for 15 minutes. And what that does is that hot boiling water stays hot and continues to cook the eggs. And 15 minutes works in getting them completely hard boiled. So I set my timer for 15 minutes, and once it goes off, I take my pan and I take the lid off. I dump the water out, the hot water, and I rinse them with cold water. And I rinse them for a little while, and then I put cold water in and let them sit in cold water for a little while. Some people have been frustrated with making boiled eggs because the hard shell sometimes gives them a hard time getting off. I have found that if I take my hard-boiled eggs after they're hot and pour cold water on them and let them sit in cold water a little bit, that helps pull the egg away from the shell. And then it's a little easier to pull that shell off. Now, because they were sitting in cold water, the pan is cold and the egg has cooled off. And the next thing I do is I take the shell off of all of my hard-boiled eggs right away. The egg inside is still a little warm when it happens, but I have found that the shell comes off much easier. The other thing to note is, because I have had chickens for a lot of years, I also have found that the eggs that are that you collect from a chicken right away sometimes take harder to get the shell off than an older egg. So I like to keep my eggs in the refrigerator a couple of weeks if they're fresh off of a chicken before I try to boil them, because sometimes that's a problem too. But if you're buying your eggs in the grocery store, you'll be just fine with store-bought eggs. All right, so I took my eggs, I took the shell off, and I got my egg out of the shell, and it looks like this. And if you cut it in half, the middle should be hard, and it should be yellow. All right, and so my 3 eggs are here in this pan, this bowl, and I'm going to cut them up. And it's kind of fun to cut up food if you're in the kitchen. It's kind of relaxing, I think. Some people don't like to work in the kitchen, but I think if you have everything you need, and I think it could be a lot of fun. So, and hopefully you like the taste of it too when you're done with it. All right, so my recipe called for 3 boiled eggs. I have my 3 boiled eggs here, and they are all chopped up now. The next thing we're going to add is 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise. So I have my mayonnaise here, and I'm going to just use my tablespoon, and I'm going to fill it pretty close to 2 tablespoons. Now again, boys and girls, like we talked about last week, as you're cooking, if you're like, hey, I want to add a little extra or maybe a little less, you can do that. All right, so we got 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise inside with our eggs. And the next thing is going to be a tablespoon of sweet relish. Now this was fun for me because I don't normally put relish in my egg salad, but I was very curious, and so I definitely followed the recipe. And so I'm going to go ahead and put a tablespoon of sweet relish. Add that. And then we're going to put some pepper in. Now this recipe asks for 1 teaspoon of fresh dill or half a teaspoon of pepper. I'm going to choose to do the pepper because I like pepper. But if you have dill at home, you can go ahead and try with the dill. So I'm going to just crank a little bit of pepper into my egg salad. All right. And that is it. That's all I need for my egg salad. So I'm going to mix it all up together. And remember what we've been talking about, it's good to smell things. Right now I'm smelling the pepper that I just put in there. And so you should have a nice consistency. This recipe says that 3 eggs, this 3-egg recipe, should make 3 sandwiches. I have 6 slices of bread here. I use the whole grain, but you can use whatever bread you have. All right. And so I think I have it pretty well mixed up here. And then we start building our sandwiches. Now I put some romaine lettuce here, and so take my tops of my sandwiches off here and put them to the side. And I'm going to take my romaine. Now I did wash my hands. Hopefully you have too as you're baking and cooking in the kitchen. Keep your hands nice and clean. Then it's not so bad if you have to touch your food items. All right. Now I do like romaine because I like the crunchiness, but any kind of salad you have is good if you like to have salad on your sandwiches. Now some of these are pretty crunchy, so I'm going to set those aside. And then I'm going to just add a scoop of egg salad on each. And once I have them done, I'm going to cut them in half. And it's fun to garnish, so I actually have some vegetables and some fruit, and I also have some pretzels and some strawberries. And that should be a lot of fun for a sandwich today. And the fun part of using eggs is really, you could have this for breakfast or lunch, or maybe even dinner. That's my dog falling on the floor. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this one in half. And one other thing I have here on the table or on the counter that I didn't mention was minced onion. I like onion inside of my egg salad. So I didn't add this just now, but I would often add a little touch of onion. Either fresh onion, I like the red onion, it's not so strong, but it is definitely tasty. Or you can try putting minced onion because that's always fast and easy to do. And you just add a little bit of it. So here's our sandwich, and it was pretty fast. And so I'm going to try it. It's very good. It's very good. So hopefully, boys and girls, you'll have a chance to make a sandwich. I would love to hear if you are making these things and if you're having fun doing it. And if you like it, or if maybe you came up with a creative idea to make it a little bit different, that is part of the fun of baking and cooking like we talked about. Now next month, you're going to see a picture right after this segment of our next project. And I'm going to be using a different book. It's called The Forest Feast for Kids by Erin Gleason. And it's a wonderful book, and I'm excited to share it with you. And the recipe we're going to be doing is called a carrot and zucchini ribbon pasta. So I'm hoping you'll enjoy that as well. And that's going to take place on next Wednesday, March 10th. So I hope to see you then, and you have a great day.